What's up, idols? It's CC Lesson 3. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I know that if a foreigner decides that they want to pack up everything and move to Korea, chances are they're going to be an English teacher. We're going to be teaching. There are so many jobs out there for us, especially if you have the right qualifications or come from the right country. But there's a lot happening to teachers in South Korea that I feel like we really need to talk about. Before we do, I want to invite you guys to check out my Patreon. If you want to see content that I can't put on YouTube because the topic isn't appropriate for this platform, it's going to get demonetized and flagged and suppressed by the algorithm. Over there, we share stories that are about dating, hookups, but in a more raw, realistic way, if you want to call it that. Because a lot of times when these stories come in, I have to water them down. I have to make them ad friendly, but on Patreon, they are raw. And this one that I just uploaded is not quite a story time. It's more like an archive, a collection of what her experience has been like dating in China, Japan, and Korea, hooking up with guys and the way they treated her, the way they are. And here's a clip. Normally, I don't do this, kiss and tell, but I think people may be curious to know. I've been an English teacher for the last 7 years. I started in China, then Korea, and I'm currently in Japan. Next, I'm thinking of heading to Thailand. I don't know why, but Chinese men seemed a little clingy to me. Maybe it's because they outnumber women there and they need to lock us down when they got one. Either way, I wasn't a fan. Yeah, we know about the whole one-child policy and how a lot of people in China, when they had kids, they would prefer to keep the male-born children and they would get rid of the girls. And now there's a lot more men in China than there are women, and that's causing a lot of problems. So that's one theory that kind of makes sense here. So this hookup guy, I'm sorry to say he was bad. Not only that, but he came quick, and once he was done, he kept apologizing for not pleasing me and having a small penis. He said it's a shame, and I said it's okay, you can go now.
There's the door. There's the door, bitch!
Hi. The first guy I was with in Korea was Fuckboy 101. He was so sexy though. I swear he looked like Nikki from ENHYPEN, even though he's Japanese. He had the haircut and the style. That's the perfect way to describe that man's aesthetic. He was trouble and I didn't mind at all. In the morning. Before I left, he asked me if I could leave my underwear for him to keep.
What you say? That you only meant.
So yeah, if you want to see that story and more like that, then check out the link in the description to join my Patreon. Okay, so let's just jump right into this video. I myself was an English teacher in South Korea for over 2 years. So I've seen a lot, I've experienced a lot, and what's happening over there to teachers right now is really making me upset. But sadly, I don't find it surprising. I think it actually does a really good job at reflecting the many different inequalities in South Korea that are raging right now. Like I said though, my experience as an English teacher in Korea was super chill. I was very lucky. I had great staff. I had good experience with parents and teachers and all that stuff. Of course, there were some students who misbehaved, like that one who perved on me in the women's bathroom. I made a story time about that. Or the student who tried to get me deported, made a story time on that. But other than that, nothing but good memories and good vibes. I didn't have to deal with pushy, disrespectful parents or staff that was too strict or racist or anything like that. Like, I had a great time as a teacher. I got really, really lucky. I taught at 4 different schools there and I've had nothing but good experiences. But from what I've heard through my friends, I'm not surprised at the other side of the coin. Being overworked, underpaid, and yelled at by parents. Badass students sometimes to the point where they were dangerous. Like Bria, Tanya, and Aaron, for example, they worked at Hagwons. I worked at a public school. It can be a bit different it is very different. Being an English teacher, a foreign English teacher at a public school versus being a foreign English teacher at a Hagwon. Totally different experience. I learned through a lot of my friends, they have to do these things called like kids notes, where basically at the end of every week, you write a report about the progress of every student to their parent. And that's one thing I want to dive into first, the parents. Like I said, I had a pretty good experience dealing with parents. Like I didn't have any bad parents, any pushy parents, anyone who was questioning me about why their kid wasn't getting straight A's. Like I didn't have to deal with that at all. I didn't even have to talk to them that much. Like I didn't have to do kids notes or anything like that. The only thing is every semester we'd have like an open class so parents could come and watch if they wanted to. The principals, other teachers could come and watch me teach these kids if they wanted to, and they would just smile and give me a thumbs up and tell me how great it is that I'm here and they hope I like Korea and even tell me I'm pretty. I had great experiences with these parents, but on the other side of the coin, you have parents who see you as like their servant. In Korea, there is a rapid declining birth rate, and the couples who do go on to have kids usually have one, maybe two tops. So they try to do everything to make sure their child has a bright future and they succeed and they're very well educated. The education system in Korea is brutal. That's one of the many reasons I don't see myself ever living there permanently. I would never want to raise a child in that environment. Visits, I'm all for visiting Korea. I will always go back and visit, but I will never live there again. A lot of you guys have asked me why. That's one of the reasons why. But yeah, you invest everything into your one, maybe two children's futures, right? I'll never forget this third grader I had. She was like a little businesswoman. Do you guys watch Hey Arnold? If you are a real one, then you know Hey Arnold. Hey Arnold's my all-time favorite childhood cartoon. She literally reminded me of that kid Lorenzo. Remember, he started at PS 118 and he had a briefcase, he had a cell phone, he didn't have time for fun, and they wanted to help him experience what it was like to be a kid and have fun and not be stressed.
You're running some kind of business?
Well, sort of. I use this to check my stock sometimes.
Why don't you come after recess?
No, see, after recess we have 2 hours of class, and the rest of the day looks pretty bad. See, then when I get out of my junior investment club, it's viola lessons till 6. Then my nutritionist will arrive to fix dinner.
Willikers.
Then I read a book, then 15 minutes of flashcards, a half hour of TV at 8, then bed.
Now that's one busy boy.
Busy? He's a freak. I mean, look at that schedule. When do you have any fun?
I tried to schedule some fun last month, but I had to cancel it.
She was only like 7 or 8. And not only did they have a full day of class, which was from like 9 a.m. to, this was elementary school, from like 9 a.m. to maybe like 2:30, 2:45-ish. But then they'd have like a 5 to 10 minute little break. I mean, they had recess too, but after lunch. But they'd have like a 5 or 10 minute break, and then we'd have our after school English class. So they would come right back in the classroom and learn some more for 40 minutes to an hour. And she would often have to leave my after school program a little bit early because she had a hagwon to go on to study at further. She had her little pink rubber glasses. She had her little suitcase. Teacher, I go to Hagwon now. Bye-bye. Like, she is going to be a businesswoman. That's just an example of what it's like for these kids, right? Like, you're expected to study all the time. Parents expect you to get the best grades, and they put a lot of pressure not only on the students, but the teachers as well. There's this article I found, and it said, in Korea, it's known as education fever. It's the immense pressure that parents put on their children to do well in school. They tell them that they must excel in school to get into the best college to get the best jobs. The pressure used to be applied to only high school students, but now it's seeped down to middle and even elementary school. That combined with the fact that teachers, it seems to be kind of a I won't say worldwide, but every country I've ever lived in, where teachers are underpaid. Highly appreciated, highly respected professions, but very underpaid. So that combined with these parents' determination to make sure their kids receive the best education, they get aggressive, they get abusive, they belittle, they harass these teachers because why isn't my child making straight A's? And you start seeing that K-drama shit where they look down on people who make less money than them. They demand that their child receives the best grades. They berate and harass these teachers when those expectations are not met. It's like they think these teachers work directly for them alone and not like there's a whole class of students they need to teach. Bria, Tanya, and Aaron used to dread having to do these kids' notes because they didn't want to deal with these parents. That article I read goes on to say, the role of parents is probably the biggest factor, explained a former teacher and education expert, Oh In-soo, from Ewha Women's University. Even at the elementary level, students feel pressure to study well due to parental expectations, which are so high. This pressure only increases as they approach middle and high school. But the pressure is not only put on the children, it's been applied to the teachers too. If schools fail to meet their expectations, parents will hold teachers responsible. More than 100 teachers have killed themselves over a 5-year period, the South Korean Ministry of Education reports. Just over half of those were in the primary school level. Professor Oh says, there has been a big cultural change as to how teachers are viewed. Once respected and held in high regard, parents see teachers as servants who make much less money than them now. With diminished social standings of teachers and hypersensitivity around their child's education, parents are much more outspoken, sometimes to the point of aggression. If they perceive teachers are not meeting their demands, he said, the shift in students and parents from just a decade ago is striking. So yeah, the main reason I wanted to talk about this topic is because unfortunately, we've seen a lot of teachers unaliving themselves. because of this pressure and they can't do their job without being harassed. In South Korea, unfortunately, we see that suicide is really high. A lot of people unalive themselves for various reasons. So it just makes me sad because anybody who wants to be a teacher, you just have to be a good person because you know you're not in it for the money. You're not making a lot. You want to shape this next generation. I don't mean like us foreign teachers because that's like, there's so many benefits that come from that. You're being paid to travel essentially. But I mean these people who study education in uni, like they make it their life's mission to be a teacher. I have a tremendous respect for them. And I think most people on this planet do. So seeing teachers being treated like this really pisses me off because teachers are essential. Teachers are irreplaceable. A lot of this starts at home, the way parents treat their children at home. Like holding these kids to such high standards is a lot of pressure for anyone to live up to, let alone a child. And when you do this, you're teaching them that bullying is okay, harassment is okay. I'm not teaching my kid that. Not to mention the fact, oh my God, this is really important I think to mention. Some kids have behavioral issues and learning disabilities. But what's weird is in my experience, as teachers, you're expected to just ignore that. Don't address them when they need to be addressed. Don't treat them any differently. You just keep going with the class as normal. There were so many times where a kid was acting out repetitively or where a kid was falling behind. And sure, like after school, they can come back and help a little bit. But like during the lesson, not everybody learns the same way. You know, like some people need this taught to them a certain way. Some people need this explained to them this way. So when people were falling behind and we were kind of expected to just keep it rolling, I did not like that. When a kid misbehaves and I'm expected to reward them the way I reward the kids who were behaving, I did not like that. Like when I would ask my mentor teacher about so-and-so's behavior or so-and-so's like educational level, that's okay, it's okay. It was just always dismissed. And I'm like, no, it's not okay because I can't do my job if they're not learning or paying attention. They choose denial. And we know this is a thing, especially in South Korea, where mental health is not directly addressed. Mental illnesses, like I know for a fact I had students who were dyslexic or had ADD or ADHD, but we didn't talk about it. You just don't address the elephant in the room. Kids were bullying kids to the point where they were in tears and we're supposed to just keep going on with the lesson. I was like, what? Like literally, the one who tried to get me deported. I will never forget how he would just sit back. He was only in the 4th grade, by the way. He would sit back in his chair with like the 2 front legs up, feet on the table, throwing paper at the same girl over and over. And she's just sitting there crying, trying to pay attention and listen to the lesson. And my mentor teacher wanted me to just keep teaching. So I would stop and stare at him. Like,
the problem is that I think you're a clown, and I think that your behavior is clown behavior.
And then that's when he would go, I will go sin, call me the foreign teacher, foreigner, whatever. This lady, like, boy, you're a 10. Sit down. And that's another thing. When they do behave like that, there is only but so much a teacher can do. I don't know if you guys have seen this video. It was a 3rd grader who was slapping the vice principal because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the student was trying to leave the school property without permission. And the vice principal was trying to keep him in the classroom and he started to slap the teacher, and the teacher or vice principal, and the vice principal just had to sit there and take it, because if you retaliate, you can't hit a kid because then you might be accused of child abuse or neglect, you know, things like that. So as a teacher, there's only but so much you can do. It starts at home with the parents. And I don't want to make it sound like people with learning disabilities or behavioral issues are always a problem or trying to be a problem. Like there were several students that I had who didn't understand it but desperately wanted to understand it. And they tried so hard to keep up. They're like, teacher, I don't get it. And then they would get made fun of for that. Like, I remember this 6th grade, actually says I'm home. I can show y'all something. So when I left teaching, the 6th grader that I'm talking about now, who wanted to learn but just couldn't follow, he made me this. I always keep it. It says, Dear Jay, Young All Sun Sing Neem. And on the back is his name. I'm not going to show you his name, but I'll let you see that his surname is Kim. It was fun studying English with my teacher. Always be happy and have fun. Happy New Year. I was so grateful. By the way, he gave this to me in 2018. It's 2024 and I still got this. It's a little like angel thing. It smells really nice. I don't know what it is, but it has a handmade sticker on it. Stop it. Who's cutting onions? But yeah, the point is, not every student fits under the same umbrella. Some students need extra help. Some students need special teachings, special behavior, things like that to be addressed uniquely. And we're taught to just disregard. Anyway, that's just a teacher rant. Back to this video. Teaching is not an easy job. There aren't many jobs out there that are quote unquote easy jobs, but the fact that these teachers make pennies and yet they're such vital pieces of society Like, we need teachers to function. So to see them disrespected and berated and harassed and abused really drives me crazy. Lately, there's been this Karen energy. Like, you've seen those videos where a Karen gets pulled over by the police and they're saying, give me your license, registration, all that stuff. And the Karen is like, how dare you? I pay your salary with my taxes. It's given that energy, right? So one such case of a teacher unaliving themselves because of the harassment from parents. Here's one incident, because there's been so many, unfortunately. The 26-year-old teacher says, I'm a good, strong person. An elementary teacher named O had been putting on a brave face as she endured bullying from the parents of her young students. I am a good, strong person, she wrote in her diary several times last year. A month later, the 26-year-old teacher took her own life. She died within a year of starting her first full-time teaching job, becoming another awful statistic in the high number of teacher unalivings that have played out through South Korea recently. Her father, Oh Jae-gun, blames her school and saying they failed to support the young teacher. Recalling these memories is extremely difficult, he says, as he looks at his daughter's diary. The parents don't like new teachers, so the vice principal didn't tell them, Jae-gun says. When the parents found out how inexperienced Oh was, they started to put enormous pressure on her. Oh received messages from parents at all hours, even on a break from school. When she tried to break up a fight between two students, the parents said that she handled the situation poorly. They kept calling our daughter, saying things like, you'll never be able to teach again, her father said. But some parents went even further. They said, we'll make sure you eat prison food. I'm going to the police station to file a complaint against you right now. You'll never stand in front of a classroom again. Oh's friends begged her to leave the school, even though the other teachers said what she experienced was normal. She chose to continue with no support from administration. When my daughter tried to get help, they just told her, figure it out yourself, Jae-gun says. Oh took her own life January of last year, just 10 months after accepting her first teaching job. The education department concluded in December that last year, the unaliving was caused by depression due to bullying from parents. An analysis of her text messages revealed the extent of that bullying, including 1,500 messages from parents. That makes that Karen analogy so much more relevant. Here's another example of a teacher who unalived themselves. Another teacher, 24, unalived themselves in a supply closet of a Gangnam elementary school. 2 weeks before she dies, she said, my chest is so tight, I can't breathe anymore. Before this, L, they just call her L, had been subjected to a ton of ongoing complaints from parents who felt their children had been treated unfairly, neglected, or emotionally abused. They bombarded the teacher with messages and phone calls, even at night and on weekends. Parents will often go to the police when they are not satisfied with the teacher. Elementary school teacher Kim Min-jun has experienced this kind of abuse from parents. After discovering students had written abusive messages about him on a school notice board, he reported the incident to the Teachers' Rights Protection Committee. Then, the parents of those children retaliated by reporting him to the police for alleged abuse. Some parents accused him of only providing water, not sports drinks, to kids during an athletic event. Others complained that the student was not immediately sent to the nurse after scraping her knee. June assumed the allegations were so ridiculous that the police would dismiss them immediately. I thought, no, that can't be. It must be something else. It didn't make sense that they would report that as child abuse, but later, during the police investigation, when they asked me about it, I got angry at the police. I said, what nonsense is this? How is that child abuse? The case was eventually thrown out, but only after prosecutors got involved. June has since moved schools, but he is still affected by what happened at his previous school. I try to do my job and roll diligently, he said. But now, to avoid doing anything that could potentially be reported as child abuse, I don't really discipline my students anymore. And that goes back to that viral video of the 3rd grader slapping the vice principal because he know what you gonna do about it. What you gonna do about it? My parents will call the cops. Like, you can't do anything. You got to sit there and just take abuse from students and their parents. That's insane. So you may wonder if anything is being done about this. Luckily, there is. I'm sure you've seen at least 1 or 2 of these protests and rallies online sometime this year, last year, the year before, because this is becoming increasingly an issue. In response to the numerous teacher unalivings and subsequent protests, the government has taken measures to try to alleviate some of the concerns. They created a hotline for teachers in distress where they can receive legal and counseling advice. They also mandated that a teacher cannot be removed after only 1 complaint. Parents can also be fined more than $3,000 if they interfere with educational activities, which includes repeatedly filing ridiculous complaints or demanding teachers do things that are not part of their official duties. So that's a start. It's nice to know they're not ignoring this anymore, but I was kind of surprised in a way. Like, Socially, like social standings and inequalities, no, that didn't really surprise me. I've seen a lot of people be looking down, like openly shaming people in lower income levels. So I've seen that a lot. But teachers in Asian countries, period, like especially in Japan and Korea and China, are like such respected professions. Like the teachers, sensing, like they bow to you, like they're so respectful and formal to you. So part of this is a little bit surprising. And this ties into a video I did a few weeks ago about how South Korea is overworked, overeducated, and overstressed, and they're unhappy, and this leads to a lot of unalivings, and they're miserable and stressed and depressed, and it's too competitive of an environment. The schools are too competitive, the work field is too competitive. Like you can't relax and enjoy your life. And if you're teaching kids that this is normal from elementary school, you're gonna have long generational structural problems. On my channel over the past few years, I've always said that being a foreigner in Korea is way less intense. Like you get away with a lot because you're a foreigner. So like this type of thing doesn't really happen to foreign teachers because, let's be real, sure, parents can speak, a bit conversational English and even business English, but they're not about to call you and curse you out because their kid isn't doing well. This is primarily like a native teacher situation. I feel like life in Korea for Koreans is way worse than it is for foreigners in Korean. We get to have fun. We're not held to such regard. Like even when my friends sent in those kids notes, they didn't bear the brunt of it. Like every teacher had to do it. The Korean ones got the angry parents. They just didn't want to deal with the translation later. Like, oh, so little Yuna's mom said that if you can make sure this could happen, the language barrier definitely does help us out. But as much as I care about Korea, and I really do, that's why we're still talking about it here on this channel, I just feel like people's happiness needs to be considered and taken more seriously. Life isn't always just about success. Like if you can be successful and unhappy, and then what do you have? There are many people in the world who are happy and broke, and that's admirable. So yeah, I don't want to keep going on and on. Thanks for watching. If you did, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I will see you guys next time. Annyeong.